Are you listening? Damn.
Hello, sports fans. My name is Leroy Marc, and welcome to the Business of Influence podcast. It is season 2 and episode 4, and this time I don't have my Tammy with me, so I'm looking a bit sad. But I've compensated for that by bringing 2 guests in studio to help me discuss today's topic about navigating the pitfalls of this industry, especially when you have clients who have a very small budget, have very big expectations. So I'm so glad in studio to be joined by my 2 guests. Hello, 2 guests.
Hello.
From Total Exposure, our Chief Operations Officer, Thuso Sekhaolelo.
Yay!
And our digital marketing strategist at Wonder Social, Mashudu Nenjelele.
What's up?
I love that. It's like, someone, we need to get applause, an applause tape to play us in. Guys, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
At a very short notice, I know you guys are very busy making the world of influence work. So before we start the conversation, I think let's sort of go 10 steps back, right? Thuso, you work at Total Exposure. What kind of work do you guys do in the marketing space?
Gosh, we're going to take it a couple of steps back.
Okay.
Just to give you context. So TE has been around for over 30 years.
Okay.
We started in the PR music space.
Music PR?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Music PR. We did a couple of events, fast track a couple of years. Then we had TV clients come on board. Then we had alcohol clients come on board. So we focused really in the lifestyle and entertainment space. COVID hit. And we all know what happened,
In fact, 2 days ago was the anniversary of COVID.
Yes, I heard that on the radio. I'm like, oh my gosh, 4 years ago, really? Anyway, COVID hits, and then we obviously have to make a plan, in order to stay in business and make sure that we are alive and staying in business. So we then went back, just rejigged our strategy, looked at what our offering can be, and we moved from just being an earned PR agency to being more of a 360 peso PR agency.
What's an earned PR agency?
Earned is mostly like your traditional PR, so just your traditional media relations. That's all your earned stuff.
Okay.
But then if you start looking at peso, you're looking at paid, you're looking at earned, you're looking at shared, and you're looking at owned.
Okay.
So it's a really, a holistic 360. That's when you can bring in the influencer. That's when you can bring in the events. That's when you can bring in all these little, bits and bobs that help you create this beautiful story around PR. Then about a year or 2 years ago, we decided to add another layer.
Okay.
We stepped into the activation space. We stepped into the influencer marketing space. So those are the little, spaces and departments that we focus on at Total Exposure.
What I love about that, and we'll chat more about it as the episode goes through, is that, one of the interesting things for me, Mashudu, is that there seems to be so many brands that are competing for our mind share, right?
Yeah.
And each of them has like a particular way of marketing to us individually. Chat to me about some of the stuff that you guys do at Wonder Social.
So obviously at Wonder Social, I haven't been there for quite long, but it's been quite a great jump moving into that space. What we do at Wonder Social is we take all the social media and we then package that for clients and then we send that out into the market. So we do from campaign management to your paid media. And we work with a really holistic line of different clients from your Nestle, Procter & Gamble's, your Pernod Ricards, and all of that. And we just handle all the social media offerings. I know everyone thinks social media is just posting a picture, comments, likes.
Twitter.
It's way more than that. Way more than that.
And that's where I think we're starting to understand, right? So in the first season of this podcast, we are really trying to get guests to understand that the world of influencer marketing and the influencer space, and we call it the business of marketing because it is a business. The 3 of us get paid by this industry. Yeah. And for me, it was very interesting to see how people actually don't understand how it happens. We were constantly finding that we are, we wake up and we see a campaign and then someone sends you an email, but we don't know how the ecosystem works. And I was so intrigued, even just looking at sort of the arrangement of clients that you guys have. How do you even begin to become an aficionado, an authority in the space when you've got so many diverse clients? Like as you said, you're going from music to alcohol to talent management to packaging to PR. And when you start getting to where the influencer fits in, we just don't know where we are. So I think maybe let's again go back a step and say, how do you manage such a diverse industry when you guys are, one company, one team of people, and be able to cater to so many different clients?
Well, two things. Firstly, basics.
Yeah.
If you can get the basics right, then you can build from there. So it's all about research. It's all about immersing yourself in that specific space. So if you're in the PR space, if you're in the influencer space, really immerse yourself in that space. Really understand the nitty-gritties of what really makes this world go round. So that for me is key. Once you get the basics, once you do your research, once you understand how the ball rolls in that space, then you're good. Then you can add on to that.
Okay.
So if you then have to, then it becomes a bit of a copy and paste. So you got the basics, then you can copy paste that on into the alcohol space and then move up from there.
Okay.
Copy and paste that into the corporate space and move up from there. Copy and paste into the tech space and move up from there. Because I remember a couple of years ago, we had a small project in the app tech space.
Yeah.
Nobody in the business knew anything about tech. But what we had to do, which is one of our first steps when you get a new business, is to research. Read about that client. When you're sitting in that boardroom with the client, you need to sound like you've been doing tech for 10 years.
You're a tech guy.
You are the tech guru. So go research. I think we are playing we are very fortunate, to have the internet, where you can actually just type, and a whole lot of information comes through. We're now moving to the space of AI, where there's a whole lot of information that comes through, But obviously you have to sift through it, right? You have to sift through it. But the point I'm trying to make is there's a whole lot of knowledge out there. So you can't just sit and say, I don't know.
Yeah.
We cannot, we are not.
Yeah, you're not in
we
that
can't
space
afford,
Yeah.
not at all. We can't afford to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's Wi-Fi, there's internet, there's people, that you can call on and ask and say, hey, Mashudu, I've just read something or something just landed on my table and I don't know what it means. Sit me down. What is this? What does this mean? So once you have that base, then it's easy for you to build. That's one.
Yeah.
Two, getting diversity within the team.
Oh, okay.
Right? There's Leroy, who comes from Alex, who's done this. There's Mashudu, who comes from Santon, who does this. When those two people come in, and I know I just said Alex and Santon, but when those two people come in and sit in one boardroom, different ideas can pop up, different scenarios can pop up, different ideologies can pop up, and you can even poke holes into, in campaigns and ideas and all of those things quite easily because you're having two different ideologies. It's not just one voice. You're not just speaking to one person.
It's so crazy you say that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we had an episode about emotional intelligence, one of the very first of this season, and we're chatting about how sometimes what happens is that we don't have enough diversity in a group, in a setting, that when brands start speaking, and we've seen this a lot of times, as you said, we're on the internet, and you wake up and you see something like on X or on Instagram or whatever, and you go, how many people did this pass? And they're all okayed it.
Right.
And, it's because the people in that room all think the same. So I love that idea about diversity. And so...
I think we should
Interesting story. I was having a conversation with Leroy about the exact same thing. How brands really just don't understand their own brand.
Yeah.
We had a conversation. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the brands.
We're not allowed to because they don't pay us. But
So we had a very popular alcohol brand that we were pitching to. And their whole thing was, okay, guys, we were never really in the South African market to do or make a big noise.
Yeah.
We're quite a premium brand. So, we weren't here to do and make so much noise.
Yeah.
But we're seemingly making so much noise.
Yeah.
Everyone loves our product. And in my head, I'm like, you guys really don't understand that every single piano song that comes out has your brand.
I hear you, yeah.
And they were like, really? And I'm like, guys, you really didn't know at all, that's the reason why your brand is great. Yeah. So I guess what I wanted to add also onto Thuso's thing, the beginning, the base layer also has to be a resource manager.
Yeah.
Who you need to get the right people in. Because you need to get people...
From a human resource point of view?
From a human resource point of view. You got to get the right people in because the process starts with the people.
Yeah.
Right? Because in our line of work, the process always starts with the pitch.
Yeah.
Right? So if you don't have someone who's confident enough to take it to the client, who's well researched enough to take it to the client, and who understands the market, you're going to lose the pitch. And
Yeah.
once you lose the pitch, you don't have the client.
Yep.
I like that because when, one of the questions I wanted to know, and you guys have answered it, almost with foresight, that, what happens once you've got the pitch done or the client contacts you and you say, okay, this is what we need to do. But I think I want to put a spin on that and say, most clients don't seem to understand that marketing, and in particular digital marketing, and in particular influencer marketing and that influencer space, they think it's a nice to have. They think it's something that you can layer on top. How do you then, once you are in the pitch room, then let's start there. We're in the pitch room now and we've been called upon to pitch for brand of water X, and we want to let them know that a strategy includes these particular elements. I mean, how do we sell it to clients for them to understand this is no longer nice to have, but an integral part of their marketing strategy?
I think from my side, just to answer you, it's got to start with knowing your client.
Okay.
You got to know your clients. You got to know what their needs are, what they're looking for, where they're trying to grow to, and all of that. But also, some clients do this thing where they come to you as an agency and they also don't know what they want.
Yeah.
They're just like, we want to grow our followers. We just want to make sure that we've got presence online.
They know they need to
What do
have
you
something.
mean?
They know they need to have
Yeah.
something, but they don't know exactly what it is that
Yeah.
they want. And that's where you as the expert sort of need to come in, and you've got obviously your base offering. This is what the agency offers, and this is what we can do for you and all of that. But you got to get into sort of the touch points of their brand and look at what about their brand could match your agency, and what about your agency could help their brand grow even more. So do you have a similar brand in your portfolio that you can sort of take insights from?
Okay.
If I've got one alcohol brand, are they similar? Is there something I can
it.
pull and go, oh no, we actually did this for our clients and they actually loved it, and all of that. And then goes in with the influencer space. Most of the brands come in and they feel like they don't need the influencer space.
Well, what
They
do you
feel
know?
like, hey, this is not really for us. But in reality, it's for everyone.
Yep.
It's for everyone, depending on how you use it. Depending on the right influencers doing the right thing for your brand, you can grow. Political parties right now are snatching influencers.
And for me,
It's snatching them up.
For me, what's crazy about how we're managing the way we are translating to client what needs to be done, and I think it also goes to how then we manage those resources, because again, I think clients limit your budget because they also don't know the benefit of what they're getting in.
Yes.
So here's a question for you. So you guys are dealing with a very varied products. Okay, so we've got alcohol. Okay, so we've got alcohol down.
Yep.
You've got a very big music festival that you run to. So you're working with household products. You're working with things that are happening in the club. As a content creator, we always have the friction with the brand custodians that we actually don't know what is required or what industry best practice is when it comes to particular product. So you guys have both spoken about having a base and understanding of the research, but then you guys are applying the template, as it were, to whatever the brand is. So let's use 3 examples, right? We'll start with alcohol. As a content creator, I've been contacted by alcohol brand Mashudu. What are the things that we need to understand about the nature of just working in your space with alcohol versus, let's say, something like in tech, versus something like a corporate? Because what we found is we get brands who give us briefs, for instance, and then we get them, we go, yeah, you see, this is a bank. So I'm going to play piano and abseil off the side of the building, and then I'm going to twerk in the video, and they go, oh, my baby.
No.
And then
Wrong
maybe
brand.
to then add on to the question, how do you then speak to client and say, client, you see how you see activations happening for brand DY? We don't do it like that here. You are a bank. Banks do the following. So how do you, so what are let's use alcohol, tech, and corporate as sort of the genres that we work around, so we can start seeing what the industry best practice is.
I think.
me-
Sorry.
Let's go with Thuso.
I was going to say, for me, it's all about proper briefing.
Yeah.
Right. That's where you're going to solve all your problems. It's proper briefing. Yes, you've received this brief, but you need to actually sit down with the brand custodian. They need to explain. They need to teach you, about the brand, the same way that they've been taught and they know the brand in and out. When the moment you bring an influencer on board. And it's not just a drop like, okay, here, Leroy, go, and you can post if you want to. You can, because there are some brands or some drops, that do that. You're just getting a drop, and it's up to you whether you want to post or not. But once you bring someone onto a campaign, you really need to sit down and have an in-depth briefing session with that person. Really take them through, make them understand, what does brand Mashudu mean? What does it stand for? I know a few years ago, we helped launch an alcohol brand, like an international alcohol brand in SA.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew about it. But so even our influencer had no idea what this brand is about. So we literally had to sit down, have a full-on session, about 2-hour session, where we tell them the history of the brand, where they get to taste the brand, in different spaces, when they understand whether is it high energy, is it low energy? Because to your point, if it's low energy, you can't now be going and playing Mapiano, the gish gish. It doesn't make sense. Sorry, Janos. It doesn't make sense, But if it's high energy, then you can take it there. Then you can go and you can flash stuff. You can do this. You can, you know what I mean? So influencers really need to ask for that. So if you're just getting a brief that doesn't also make sense to you, ask. I always say to people, I'd rather you ask than not say anything, and then you go, you spend all the time creating content, because it's not cheap, guys. Because I think that's also another thing that
it's very expensive.
We as agencies, need to play a role to the brands to say, guys, it's not cheap putting content together. These people don't just sit there, put their phone, and then boom, it's done.
Yeah.
No, there's lighting, there's camera people, there's all of these things that
There's
need
all
to
of
happen.
this.
There's editing, there's light, there's all of that, right? So if you don't understand something, go ask. Demand that briefing session. I think that's also another thing that maybe some influencers, especially those that are coming in, they feel that they can't do. Then it's like, ooh, I'm asking too much. Ooh, I'm doing too much. Ooh, then they won't, bring me on board for the next one. Ask.
Yeah. So going back to you and dealing with clients, and I think for me, the crux of today's episode is how do you then really stretch the budget and work around things like the resource management. So you were saying earlier on, Mashudu, that you as an entity, as Wonder Social, as TE, as Style ID, we get the staffing right. Okay. But clients come to you, and I made the point about the alcohol brands because they want the club activation, they want the super celebrity to do it, they want 15 brand ambassadors, and they want like a festival in Cape Town every month. How do you navigate those budget constraints? Because the brief comes the budget, like everything that you get from client comes the budget. What are some of the tricks of the trade so that even when as an influencer I'm looking to you as brands, I can say, oh, okay, you know what, this is some of the tricks that they're using, and I can then piggyback on those. So what are the ways around those budget constraints? Because do we ever have enough budget?
No.
Ever?
Never. So the problem with budget is, firstly, there's never enough budget.
Okay.
There's never enough budget to do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
So, and you got to understand one thing about budget. When a client trusts you with their budget, they're trusting you with a lot.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's probably the baseline of your job.
Yeah.
Is to just manage that budget.
Yeah.
Make sure that budget's going to the right place and doing the right thing. Now, you got to put it in pillars. You can't take your budget and just spend it however you want. You got to put it in pillars. What's the most important pillar that we're dealing with? If your most important pillar is doing activations, that's where most of the budget needs to go.
Yeah.
If your most important pillar is social media, that's where most of your budget needs to go. And then you got to get your budget management right. So the word management is really management.
Yeah.
Like you really need to make sure there's no mistakes.
Every rand and cent.
No, every rand, every cent is accounted for and all of that. So now there's an agency fee, which is different from the budget you're given.
Yes, your agency fee is the money that you're being paid.
You're being paid.
Yeah.
So that does not interfere with your budget.
Yeah.
So you can't mix the two up.
Okay.
Once you've separated those two, the budget that you're given, you gotta be super precise about how you manage it. Send it to your strongest pillars, and then make sure that whatever client deems is most important gets the most budget.
I love that. So you almost work out the importance of the budget by saying, okay, I need to know what if I don't do anything else.
This has to
what
be
this
done.
has to be done. Okay, cool. Thuso?
I think I couldn't have said it better myself. I was just thinking to myself earlier that if there's one industry that knows how to stretch a dollar, it's us.
Yeah.
It's this PR and influencer space. And I honestly don't even know how we've managed to do it, but
Because that's the interesting thing for us.
we just do.
Yeah.
Yes, we just do. Because and I think it really does go back to what Mashudu said. Just making sure that the most important part of the campaign or element or pillar, is given all the budget, to make sure that we get and we tick that box and we make sure that, the results are coming in. Because also another thing, just go back to a question that you asked earlier on in terms of where we need to focus, to get the right results, or not even where we need to focus, but how do we convince clients that influencer is actually key? It's not just a nice to have. It goes back to research, So once you've done an influencer campaign, that this is what it can do.
Ah, I see.
Then pull that and show them and say, hey, guys, you wanting to do earned PR, that's actually not going to work, right? Let's actually take that budget, put it into influencers, and then you'll see the results. Then you'll get the right awareness. Then you'll get this. So I think that's how we actually stretch. Now that I think about it, that's how we stretch.
Because that's what I'm getting at. The magic here is one, convincing them with almost like history and what's happened before, and also saying to them that this doesn't work. This is how you could be utilizing your budget a bit better, because you know the clients that you've had. So for me, the big picture is you do the research, you understand, and you've learned the templates, you've got the history behind you, and then you tell the client, no, we don't need to do a big activation, or no, we don't need to do the following things. But let's chat about the fact that we'd all want to have the big budget, right? I mean, especially when you have these grand assets like, the alcohol brands, the music festivals, the big techs. Does it affect your creativity as, brand custodians when a client says to you, this is what we want, this is our strategy, and we agree on the strategy, and they say, but now,
I don't necessarily think it affects the creativity, the budget.
Yeah.
I think more than anything, it sort of makes you go back to the drawing board.
Okay.
Challenges.
Yeah, it's like planning a party. It's like planning a party and you want balloons and decorations and all of that, but you've got X amount of money. So you then go, okay, I would have loved to go buy balloons at this specific place, but now I can't. Then we might as well go to Pick and Pay, buy our own balloons and then inflate them ourselves just to save budget. So then again, goes back to, what's the most important thing about this?
Yeah.
About the party. If the most important thing about the party is the music, spend most of your budget on the music. If the most important thing is the lights and the deco, spend most of it there, and then you got to decrease and sort of pull together where you can the rest of the budget, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's
So it doesn't affect. It just means that you need to.
you just need to think
a
creative.
little broader.
And then I just wanted to touch on sort of also we have this constraint whereby we want X influencer, and X influencer, then we get rate cards.
Yeah.
And then we look at rate cards and we
They
go,
go, actually,
the
we
next
can't
one
afford
maybe."
half of them.
okay. So what I've learned as a trick of the trade is that even with the influencers, you can take some of their most important pillars. So you can go, hey, listen, Leroy, I love you and I would love to use your services. Can't really afford your entire rate card.
Yeah.
But how's about we just work on the fact that you will be the keynote speaker at this event and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want you posting on social media. I don't want you doing anything else. Just come speak. Let's pay you just to speak.
And what I found is that, at least from a content creation point of view, and when I've been called upon to say, okay, please speak, but we can only afford this part of your services, I go, you know what? I appreciate that you're not lying to me.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? I'll give you a tweet.
Yeah.
I'll give you an Instagram post.
An Instagram post.
And then it goes even further to say, okay, cool. Right now, you can't give me my full rate. Let's talk about work in the future. I mean,
Yeah.
you're having a Christmas
Let's
party.
leverage,
Yes.
hey, this
What
is
else can
one
we do?
of three.
Yeah.
So if we do one of three, we can have you on all three.
I
and
like
then
the
we'll
strategy.
give you this rate for all three.
I like that. I like
You
that.
know what I'm saying?
Because
So-
this is
I'm
like what we
actually
need, you know?
in that similar position right now. I'm like, fly on the wall, guys.
Yeah.
We
Where
were there.
Where we had an influencer, didn't have much budget, and it's like, girl, come on. There's business in the future.
Yeah.
There's things coming up. So
things coming
let's do this. Yes, it's small budget, but let's do this. And then the next time, guys, I tell you, we've used her 3 times now.
Tell me how does the brands, do brands understand that? Do brands understand how much of the negotiations that you guys do on their behalf to be able to pull this thing together? Because and this is what my worry is about what's happening in our space right now and the macro discussion that we're having about one, this podcast, but just the industry in general, is that so much of the stuff we're doing is we don't even have like like rules and regulations. Like we're afraid to ask for the bare minimum, right? If you think about a corporate that I worked in where I was a lawyer, when I go to my client, here's my fee narrative.
Yes.
And my client was like, wait, you're charging me for the phone call you made? So for the cost of the phone call, the $450, and you're charging me for your time on the phone call. And I go, well, that's how it works.
That's how it is.
And it's not questioned. Whereas in our industry, they go, but do we need 12 balloons?
Yeah.
We can do
Right.
8,
We can.
you know? And then you guys are bartering with the influencer
Yeah.
saying, can we give you a product? Can we give you, repeat business? How much of that, for me, it just seems like we're pushing so much of having to hold here, balance here, and clients don't know that.
I was having a chat with somebody else actually a few weeks ago, just around that, to say that, guys, you need to understand that in the boardrooms, we are also fighting the fight for you guys. We're not just sitting and taking whatever budget they're giving us and going, okay, here you go, Mashudu, that's it. That's all we have, because we understand what goes into the work, what goes into putting all the content and everything together. But we also understand what's on the flip side, with this 2 rand budget that we have to stretch. So we're literally the middleman, where we have to go and say, okay, Brand Mashudu, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. I know you only have this, but please just go and get something else from somewhere else, pull from somebody else. We know Activations isn't doing much, so let's pull from their budget so that we can give to this. So there's always that negotiating. For me, it's always a teaching moment, right, for brands, especially brands that are trying to get into this influencer space now that they're seeing, oh, okay, it actually works. So those brands, it's a teaching moment for us to say that, guys, you need to understand that you actually need to put serious budget into this. The same way you can take budget and give it to the sorry guys,
You're above the line.
Same. We have to do the same thing. That to the influencer space, take that budget and give it to them, and you'll see what they'll do. They'll produce amazing content.
So what would be the best case scenario? Now we have the ear of the entire industry, Mashudu, and we're saying to them, this what we say at this table will go, right? And we're saying, retainers, do we want a retainer that they must give us for our agency fee? And then when we do budgets, we can do big budgets, or do we need to have like a yearly budget of what we want to do? So we're going to give you 20 million. And then other 20 million, at the end of it all, these are my KPIs and my ROIs that I need. What is the industry best practice? Because even with us who are being contracted into as content creators, as influencers, as brand customers, or whoever we're coming in having to wonder now. Like, I would have loved to be on retainer for some of the brands and say, okay, listen, don't do me a campaign fee. Let's keep me for a year, and then let's manage that. What would be the best business practice from your experiences in the space to say, okay, as in brands, actually, let's sort this out once and for all.
Let's do it like this.
What do we need?
For me, the retainer is lovely in essence, but it also depends how much we're scaling.
Okay.
So if I say retainer and we're starting with a small piece of the business, and then by June we've scaled all the way up and we've added other elements to the business, now the retainer doesn't make sense anymore, right? So I think for me, it just depends on the goal. We can do it quarterly. We can say for this quarter, this is how much we're doing, guys. And then we'll see, based on the KPIs and the return on investment, if we need to add more pillars. Are we taking away some stuff? We don't really need activations anymore. So, okay, let's cut it out. And then we can take some of that money and bring it here.
I'm of a different view, though.
A dissenting view.
I'm of a different view. I think from an influencer marketing point of view, I feel retainers can work.
Okay.
If you have your, and again, it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but if you have your base influencers, right? And I don't even want to call them brand ambassadors, but if you have your base influencers that you can keep on retaining, have those people tell your brand story, have those people advocate for you, have those people really go on this journey with you. Whether it's an annual journey or 2 years, however long this journey is, but have this person go on this journey with you. And they'll really tell your story. So even if you're paying them a retainer of, I don't know, like 5,000 Rand a month, down the line, they will even start giving you more than this 5,000 Rand that you're actually paying them, right? Then what you can also do to supplement, so if there's something new that's coming in, then you can bring in a Thuso, just to supplement this little
To balance.
campaign. You know what I mean? So Thuso's balancing Leroy, then Thuso goes. But Leroy is that constant that is always there, that is always telling the brand story, that is always telling, the narrative and keeping that narrative going. Because if there's one thing that I love about humans is that the more we see something, the more we see the same messaging, the more we go, oh, okay, this is it.
The mind share.
You know what I mean? So the more I'm seeing Leroy affiliated with something and everything making sense, the dots connecting, then I go, okay, so this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
This is what this brand actually stands for. Because I know Leroy, and Leroy stands for this. So if he's associated with that, so okay, this is making sense. So for me, I think, the retainer could work. But it does go back to the B word.
And also, I'm seeing that both sides of it are helping to actually manage these limited resources, right? Because as you're saying, if we're wanting to keep the messaging, depending how the brand is briefed, for a year and 2 years, and we know we can pay Leroy 5,000 Rand a month, and we know he'll be happy to post 3 times a month, and then we find him posting 6 times, we've made a bargain. But if you're getting me in for a campaign, campaigns are generally more expensive because they are flash in the pan.
Exactly.
Whereas Mashudu, you're talking from a brand custodian point of view, saying that, you know what, if you give me 1,000 Rand today, and then we build up until quarter and say, okay, we've done great. Now you need to, you're almost giving them the history to say, see, quarter one, we blew the lights out. Imagine what we would do if we had 2 million.
Also, just to add on to what Thuso is saying, the only problem with sort of influence and navigating the influencer space is that people also change. So that's also my other thing. And working with a brand, we take Leroy, and Leroy is this person. He is this age, and he likes these things today.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, Leroy has all of a sudden beaten up Mashudu.
Yeah.
And then now we've got a problem.
Yeah.
So that's also my other thing is that, especially in today's landscape, you got to sort of have a management timeline where you go, okay, we're
Can we check
monitoring.
in?
We're here. Okay, we're still fine. Okay, let's go one more, another 3 months. Oh, we're still good. Because so many things are constantly
The variables
changing.
are always going
They're
up.
always going, especially in the influencer space, because influencers, a lot of their personal life is attached to
As
them.
part of the brand, yeah.
So they can't separate the two.
And
now,
when you have limited budget, you can't be doing crisis management on top
be
of
doing
all of
crisis
that.
management on top of the fact that we just gave you a retainer, and now all of a sudden you think that you don't like this anymore, or you've stopped drinking, or you're thinking, and now we're there like, but dude,
we need you to drink.
we need you to drink. We need you to do this.
For me, I find that what we don't understand about budgets as content creators is that we're just thinking that you guys are trying to skimp us, right? And what I'm trying to get to with this episode is for us to, we've chatted to content creators in the last episode. We were chatting to them about how they manage, paying things and getting the gigs right and. And for me, what I'm seeing is that there has to be a lot of deliberateness from brand custodians. And if a brand custodian and a brand owner are in disagreement, the brand custodian, i.e. you guys, has to have the conversation and explain to them why certain pillars, which include influencer marketing, are more important than others. I'm finding that we are constantly worried about, like, even when we send, briefs, we send us briefs and say, how much do you cost for this? You're like, it's an alcohol brand, so they must have money. But not realizing that that budget is stretched from here to Timbuktu. When we start thinking about using social media as one of the pillars, and I just want to zone in on that for a second, where we're using social media as one of the pillars that we're really pushing on. Firstly, how important is it to have social media for most of the brands? And secondly, what are the strategies that we use then to make the message get out there, even though we have like Iforand budget, right? Yes, we've managed the pillars, but do we boost content? Do we, have a brand advocate? Do we go and get things that don't require money, like having interviews with some of your people on above the line radio, television? Because there seems to be quite a bit of witchcraft and wizardry that you guys do that make things happen where at the end of the day the campaigns are done.
Yeah. So I think with social media, right? It's very important, first of all, for brands to
it's
be
your
on
whole
social
business,
media.
Mashudu.
If you
most
said
of us
otherwise,
are
we'd
on
be
social
shocked.
media. Like most of us are on social media.
Yeah.
most of us use social media as a place to sort of get the information we
Cool.
need.
Yeah.
We use it to sort of understand what we like. Social media even informs maybe 90% of everyone's decision lately, right? So it's very important to have. Number 2, I'm gonna go back to the influencers, right?
Yeah.
With the influencers, you need to understand why you have so many followers. You always need to start
Tina.
there. Yeah,
Tina
as influencers.
Okay.
Start with, why do I have so many followers? What am I pushing out there that people are really going, I need to double tap, I need to comment, I
Yeah.
need to do this, I need to do this. Because most influencers, they think they're influencers because of numbers. No, you're an influencer because of your influence. How do you get people to do something, right? So there's a difference between a Mashudu who can say, hey guys, let's all go to Santon on Friday, and then no one rocks up. And then there's a difference between another person saying, guys, let's go to Soweto, and then all of a sudden 10,000
2,000
people
people
arrive.
arrive, yeah.
You know, and that person also needs to understand, why are the people coming there?
Yeah.
Are they coming for me? Are they coming because I said it's important to go to Soweto? Are they coming because I said we're going to go have fun in Soweto? You know,
You're the guy who
understand.
brings the girls, you know.
Yeah, you know, understand why
Yeah.
everything is happening and why it's happening the way it's happening. Because most influencers, they come with hectic rate cards and they've got 225,000 followers, and then you put them on and you're like, yes, let's go.
But you
And
see,
then it doesn't work.
you see, and this is yeah, Savon says we must wrap it up, guys.
Oh, okay,
we must
Savon.
wrap it up. So people know you're here.
It was about to get heated, Savon.
Look, I mean, and in a way to wrap it up, for me,
Yeah.
I think what's happening in the industry is that because we have no standardization, right, and we have no benchmarks, you also come in and you say, Wuti, I've got 5,000 followers, you know,
Yeah.
so I want 2 million, and you remember. Anything is as expensive as the person who's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Like, you know. And so I think maybe in our parting shot, when we go out into the big bad world, for us who are content creators, who are sitting here, who don't know what's happening in your offices, right? What would you like to happen when we come to you as we're working in a partnership? What would you like us to understand? Even if it's not something directly linked to us, but they can inform our choices. One of the things I got from you now is you guys are constantly shifting budget.
Yeah.
So I need to understand that when I'm asking for 5,000 Rand more, it's not just saying Leroy is expensive, please give him more money. It's saying, can we have one less billboard at the event to give to Leroy? I'm now taking an asset and putting it in my pocket. So yeah,
Exactly.
so my point is, what is the parting shot that so we can understand each other and get this baseline?
I'll just put it at 2 things. You gotta understand who you are.
Yeah.
As I'm saying, you need to understand who you are and why are the people that you are influencing are influenced by you.
Yeah.
Right? So number 1. So because we've got, believe it or not, we've got lots of softwares. AI is doing wonders. It's tracking all of you guys.
Yep.
All we have to do is click a button and then we can see, oh, Leroy, okay, he's got this many impressions. People actually like him for this.
Yeah.
Most of his people are actually liking this. So we know. So we've got the softwares. So you also need to know.
Yeah.
Right? Number 2, as a content creator and an influencer, you have to be sort of creative in also what you give us. You know? You got to be creative in what you give us. Don't take a template of, oh, it's another alcohol brand. I did this for this alcohol brand. Let me just do it again.
Okay.
Or I'm just going to shoot a video. Oh, don't worry, it's fine. Even if we're sitting there, let's just shoot. You know, we know what 5 minutes of your effort looks like. We know what 3 days of your effort looks like.
Yeah.
So put in that effort.
Yeah.
Because as we said, 1 gig can simply turn into 6 gigs by one thing.
Yeah.
One thing. You putting in 3 days of effort could make me go, you know what, actually, for the rest of this, let's just use
'Cause it just
Leroy.
works well.
We like
Yeah,
Leroy.
we
you
are.
know?
We
Brands
like Leroy.
are like that as well. You know, they'll go, guys, we don't have to go through the trouble of finding someone else.
Yeah.
Use
Just
someone
just
else.
use them again.
And the opposite is true, that even when you're troublesome, the brands are like, but he's so
Yeah,
good.
so like, oh no.
A simple
Ah,
thing as like
Idlingly.
you
Yes.
came to the event and you shook someone's hand and you smiled. They're gonna sit in the boardroom and be like, he's the one that smiled at me.
Yeah.
No, get him again.
Yeah, and I think what you-
So be a lovely person to work with.
What you're doing very well is also encapsulating all the episodes we've had up to now about how it's such a multidisciplinary thing. You have to leverage on so many of your strong parts. So I agree, sir.
Yeah,
Thuso?
yeah. I think, to Mashudu's point, know who you are, because then it also helps us, to fight that fight.
Yeah.
It really just helps us to fight that fight, to say, guys, but Mashudu does A, B, C, D. Let's use him. He's the perfect person for this brand. He's the perfect person to tell the story and, just keep going at it. He'll get the results, the right results that we're looking for, right? And also understand the whole budget situation.
Yeah.
Just because I said we have 5 doesn't mean I'm trying to
Cut you off.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm really not, So also just give us a bit of grace, to go and fight that good fight for you guys. And then we'll come back and say, guys, okay, we've managed to do this. Here's what we have to work with. And I think if we can understand each other in those ways, then
I think
so much better.
my parting shot, what I'm hearing is give value. Give value for the rand that you're being paid, and if you do more than the value, people will say, actually, he really does deserve the 2,000 more, the 5,000 more.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah. So I think value, and phew. The conversation, yay. Don't say I don't bring you nice things, okay? Don't say I don't bring you nice things. Listen, it's been an interesting conversation, guys. We're staying in studio. We're going to give you a little bit of our extra channel. So hang back. We can talk about other things when we're gone. But remember, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want us to chat about next time. And more importantly, tell us your experiences in the influencer space. What are the highs and lows that you've been experiencing, and how can we start putting the word out to make sure that this industry of ours really thrives and makes money for everybody involved. As always, my name is Leroy Marc, and I'll see you next time.
Are you listening? Damn.